One. Masculine Mindset Show. It's Adam Skoda. So, you guys, I have a very special guest on today. His name is Mike Van Thielan. Forgive me if I said your name wrong, Mike, but
You did it right. You did it right.
awesome. You guys, this man was featured in Success magazine, and he also has helped athletes and swimmers alike. I was impressed by that. And so obviously I would love to hear him talk about his new Clara Gen X, I believe is what it's called.
Well, the product is Focus Plus, but the company's called GenZ Health, yes.
So yeah, I mean, I would love for you to introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us all about your product, about biohacking, because obviously I love biohacking. My listeners know this already, and I would love to hear what you have to say about this. So.
Well, yeah, as your listeners can hear, I got a little accent. I'm originally from Belgium. Grew up, my brother and I, with just our mom. She had to work hard to provide for us. But I ended up a very fierce swimming competitor. I didn't like to lose. And so I ended up going to the University of Brussels for physical education. I was into sports. I loved sports. Graduated, but in the end, what are you going to do professionally at that time when I was so young with that license? So I decided to add on physical therapy. And then as a physical therapist technical advisor, I started traveling with the with Belgian Olympic swimmers in preparation for the Olympic Games in Atlanta in 1996. And so at the time in the US, they were short of physical therapists. So I saved $400, packed my backpack, put my jeans on, and came live the American dream. Needless to say, without any coach or mentors to help me out, I got knocked down pretty often. But my motto quickly became, I never lose, I win or I learn. And so I started to get interested in more of the alternative medicine type of things, because the conventional medicine, I didn't see any good results. So I'm back to school to the College of Integrative Medicine in Orlando, got my license in acupuncture, doctor of Oriental Medicine, certified in homeopathy, Chinese herbal medicine, you name it, and started treating patients that way. But almost another 1,000 patients later, I got really frustrated, because these modalities are indeed less harmful and less invasive than conventional medicine, meaning drugs, injections, and surgeries, but I really didn't get the long-lasting results either. So I had to go back to basics, and I decided to get my PhD in holistic nutrition, and I started to look at Mother Nature, mostly animals in the wild, and see what they were doing, because Mother Nature has the truths about health. And by combining those, I became very confident in helping anybody either regain control of their health, optimize their health, or today biohack, which means objectively reverse your biological age and increasing your lifespan. So I became very confident. That's when I started doing a lot of motivational, inspirational keynote speaking. I'm also a TEDx speaker. And let's say fast forward, 2015, became the CEO of a stem cell clinic, regenerative medicine. We treated many top athletes, NFL players, heavyweight champion boxers, you name it. Great results. And then COVID came and we had to close the doors. But it was a time for me to rethink a few things and figure out what my superpowers were and what I really wanted to do. So I picked up the coaching, the mentoring, again, helping people with their health, with their business, with their personal life. But simultaneously, during that COVID period, a colleague of mine, doctor, asked if I had time to help out with pre-screening patients for medical marijuana cards in the state of Florida. I said, sure, I had time on my hands. But it ended up something very good for me, because I ended up speaking to hundreds of people every week, and people with, I was amazed how many people were suffering with anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, and you name it. And there are all these drugs, Ritalin, Wellbutrin, Adderall, and the list goes on. And yes, there's obviously smart drugs and therapists and psychologists out there. But I really found the common denominator also, that the majority of those people had no purpose in life. And so I started thinking about that, because just imagine yourself going to work, being bombarded by your boss with extra work, having to rush home, bringing the kids to soccer, dealing with your significant other, and so never be able to catch up. And many of these people also have a financial uncertainty, right? We're living from paycheck to paycheck. So I was just imagining, okay, if I don't know what tomorrow brings, or next week, or next month, or next year, I would be pretty worried and have fear instilled in me also, which then leads to anxiety, depression, and many other mental conditions. So My latest book, book number 8, the first 7 are exclusively on health-related topics, but the last one I actually went much broader, and I wrote it about biohacking, but I really incorporated some root causes of many of these diseases and mental conditions people struggle with. And so now I'm really helping people with their purpose and finding their passion and retaking control of their life, control of their agenda, their calendar, scripting their life almost, because control creates clarity, and clarity gets rid of all stress. So I solved many mental conditions, not with therapy or drugs, but just helping people finding their purpose in life and getting organized and taking back control over life and social media, and you name it. So that's kind of a little bit my journey. And so, yes, biohacking is a very broad term, and I'm very familiar with most of the things. I speak at biohacking congresses and conferences, and I just got featured on the cover of Biohackers magazine. But when it comes to that mental aspect, I really wanted to help people get off those smart drugs, and that's when I really started to look in nootropics, which are basically the natural alternatives that help with focus, productivity, the brain, memory, and those types of things.
Yeah, that is awesome. So one question I have for you: how does your pill enhance mental and physical performance? Can you explain about that? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So I was looking for something natural because I talk to a lot of those people, and even those on Adderall, they say it really works. But then when I look at the list of potential adverse reactions, it's increased heart rate, increased risk for cardiovascular disease, psychosis, seizures, and the list goes on. So it's not something I can recommend. So by doing my research, I found a few good ones, but one that caught my interest was a patented terpene called biocitroid, and the terpene comes from a specific type of blood orange, or citrus fruit, if you will, from the southeast region of Asia. And at 30 milligrams or higher, it showed to be able to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, or to cross it. So it has a very fast effect within 30-40 minutes, while most supplements take several weeks to build up in your system and hopefully have a positive effect. So what the company did is it decided to add a few synergistic components to that key ingredient. So we added L-tyrosine, which is an amino acid that has been proven to be effective or helping with focus and memory. We added phenylalanine, which is a neuroagent that also helps with photographic memory, focus, productivity. And then the last one is phosphatidyl, which is a healthy fat in our body and our brain. But research shows clearly that phosphatidyl stimulates NGF, nerve growth factor. So now we're talking about stimulating the formation of new brain cells, increasing our neurotransmitters, etc. So it seems like the 4 simple ingredients that have no side effects, that are 100% safe, no jittery effects, they're able to optimize and balance the 5 intelligence hormones that are necessary for somebody to be in the zone, not to be distracted and get the job done. So I've been able to help many people get off those drugs and get on something that is less invasive, more natural, and doesn't cause any of those side effects. And so we use it for people with ADHD and those mental conditions that are limiting them in their performance, and even top athletes, because I work with top athletes. They many times find a little edge by using this nootropic. It's called Focus Plus, so they can really have that little edge that they need to win the game, or win whatever it is that they're doing. So in order to really understand that, you need to understand that when we get into the zone, and most people have been in the zone, but mostly by chance, because we think being in the zone is only for athletes. And unfortunately, you can learn how to get into the zone on demand and click that on and off. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a salesperson, an artist, a performer, it doesn't really matter. If you want to be at your best, you got to be able to get into that zone whenever you want to. So my latest book, basically, I trademarked the name, the IZOD method. IZOD is not that clothing company, but it's in the zone on demand, unleashing your superpowers. And so it's a methodology in which we teach people to get in the zone on demand. And that's the great thing about it. But this Focus Plus helps to balance and optimize the 5 intelligence hormones, which are dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and serotonin. And so in the past, I thought decades ago, we really were always focusing on increasing our dopamine levels to be, to be focused and to get into that zone and to be motivated, etc. But today, I'm experiencing a lot of the opposite, because a lot of us are what we call in a dopamine overload. Because dopamine is the reward hormone, right? So if our brain squirts a little bit of a dopamine, it feels good. It's like getting a pat on the back. So I see, especially about amongst the young people, more than the older generations, that we're really consciously or unconsciously looking for those dopamine hits because it makes us feel good. So we're looking for sugary food, sugary drinks, energy drinks, those types of things, because they give us a dopamine hit. Or today, social media. And so that's why we get addicted to social media, or we spend too much time on it, because consciously, again, or unconsciously, when somebody comments on our post or hearts our Instagram, it's a dopamine squirt. And so we need to make people realize that when they're in a dopamine overload, when the hormones are out of balance, that's when we end up in the brain fog, which means is we can't focus. The average attention span today, a recent report shows, is only 6 seconds, which is pitiful, right? 6 seconds. So we have a brain fog, we can't focus, no attention, procrastination, fidgeting, can't get the job done, can't get the homework done. And so people don't know how to get out of that. So the first part is education about this dopamine overload. So yes, we got to upgrade your diet and watch what sugars that we take in, and also, regain control of that social media. It's controlling us. So we just got to be aware of that so we can balance and optimize those intelligence hormones. And then we got to put some routines in place for each individual to get into the zone on demand. Because when you're in the zone, as you win that game, you win that competition, you crush your sales goals, you kill that presentation on stage instead in front of 5,000 people, it doesn't matter, right? So what if you had that skill, or you could count on a routine that puts you into that zone each and every time? And so that's what I've been teaching, and that Focus Plus could be a help just for people that want to get into the zone, but also for people that are on these harmful drugs, to see if a natural alternative would do the same job without those side effects.
Something dawned on me, Mike, when you were basically talking about how you help athletes, and I can actually, all right, so I wanted to comment on that and say to my listeners really quick, and that is, I actually wrote an article called How to Increase Athletic Performance for another website. It's called fitnessandstylemagazine.com. I'll actually put that in the show notes. But what I wanted to mention is something that I had to learn the hard way, and that is I would go too hard. I would go way too hard, train too intensely, and then it just backfired. It just backfired. And so what I put in that article is, I said, like, get a massage, value your recovery. And I think that that's something that a lot of guys that even I target on my listener fan base, I think that they are probably guilty of training too hard as well. And sometimes maybe if they get in the zone too much, it can have reverse effects. So I wanted to actually come in and say really quick, just don't overdo it, guys.
And it's a great comment. It's a great comment, Adam, but it's two separate things, right? Because when in 2019, I swam a world record in the 45 plus. I'm 52 now. I was 47, 48 then. And I actually swam faster than I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I had Belgian records. I was a really good swimmer. But even now at this age, my competitors swim every day, probably 2 hours every day. When I'm preparing, I swim 3 times a week and only 75 minutes. And yes, I go to the gym once or twice, but only 40 minutes. But each time I go, I'm in the zone, and it's so high intense that it's very effective. But the reason I can't train more is because my body needs the time to make those adaptations and recover, so I can do another high intensity training 2 or 3 days later. But overall, it's much healthier and much more effective, because of course I'm preventing injury, but I'm also maximizing the benefits of the work that I did. If you train all the time, you don't get the benefits from the workout you just did, because you're jumping straight into another one. So, but you still would want to learn the skill of getting in the zone, because when you do work out, you want to maximize that time, you want to maximize that efficiency, and you don't want to be distracted with whatever else going on in the gym or whatever you are doing sports-wise. So being in the zone is something that really will enhance your workout and enhance your ultimate competition or your performance. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people, get too excited, train too hard, injure themselves, burn out, or they're not gonna perform when they need to at the level that they expected because of the amount of training they put in, because it's about quality, not always about quantity.
Yeah, what was that? A very long time ago, I was at Chris Downing's gym. He owns a gym in Canton, Ohio. I just want to say something really quick on this, you guys. I heard from Chris Downing. He is actually a celebrity trainer. He lives in my home state, and I went to his gym, and here's what he said, you guys. He said I knew LeBron, and he said that power naps are really effective. Like it just, I just want to comment on that really quick, and that is taking power naps is fucking key, to be blunt. It's you want to recover, but I actually wanted to transition and ask you this other question here. In this world of being bombarded with distractions and the sensory overload of social media, how can we better focus to become more successful and accomplished?
Well, yeah, besides the supplement we just talked about, which will help you with the hormones, again, we got to make sure our hormones are balanced. So we got to ask ourselves if we are in a dopamine overload, if we're eating not unhealthy, too much sugary drinks, energy drinks, or if we're too much on social media, because that dopamine overload will really cause, the brain fog, the improductivity, the lack of focus. But at the same time, it's not just about supplements or those types of things. It's assessing the environment and implementing tips and strategies that will help you being in the zone, will help you to focus. And many times it's very basic stuff, because I even work with high-end entrepreneurs that just overlook the basic stuff. So first question I many ask when people are unable to produce or get a project even started, they're procrastinating, they're fidgeting, they're easily distracted. It's like, okay, where's your workplace? Oh, I usually sit in the living room in front of the TV or on the kitchen counter. Well, guys, that's not going to work. Of course, there are going to be distractions. You need a designated workplace, whether it's at home or in the office or both. And then when you're going to work on something, you got to let other people know not to disturb you. Put that thing on the door or let them know. And then there's this distraction, right? It's our phone. Now, our phone is great because there's advantages to it, but we got to eliminate the disadvantages. The advantage is if I need a piece of research or a reference, or I need to know somebody for my friend doctor or my friend colleague, I can text or I can call quickly, and I can get it much faster than 2 decades ago when I had to take my bicycle and go to the library and spend 2 hours to find the book and then to find what I needed. So yes, there's a great advantage, but at the same time, when you are focusing, when you're going to work, you got to put this thing away or turn it off, because you don't want other people to interrupt you for their benefit, right? So you got to take control of all this stuff. And then there's many there's 100 things that we can do, but there's many strategies also. One very known one is called the Pomodoro technique, which means if you're going to work for 20-25 minutes, you have a timer on. Again, doors closed, designated area, no cell phones, no distractions. You put the timer on, and after 20 or 25 minutes, whatever you set the timer for, there's a mandatory 5-minute break. You walk out 5 minutes, do something else, and you come back in, timer back on, and you repeat that cycle 4 or 5 times. And it's amazing in just those few hours how many people get accomplished, usually more than they accomplish in a whole week. And so for some people, certain strategies work very well, and for others, they may not work. But there's many things that we can do to control our environment, to eliminate distractions, and then again, to get into the zone. But getting into zone also requires certain what I call biohacks. And a biohack is not necessarily something external like a pill, but it's also today, our mind controls our body, our mind controls or creates our future. So most athletes, because we're talking about athletes mostly today, most athletes do not spend enough time upgrading their mind. They're trying to upgrade their body, but the mind controls the body. So it becomes very important. Number one, because we have all these different brain waves, and you need to learn how to tap into it. You need to learn how to meditate. And 2 decades ago, when somebody told me, hey, Mike, you need to start meditation, it will help you with your swimming, I said, okay, I tried. I tried a few times, but I was not able to clear my mind. And if you don't have a result, you give up quickly, which is what I did. But today, there's so many tips and strategies and even technologies available that somebody or anybody within 1 or 2 sessions trying can really experience being in a meditative state. And so that's something when it comes to focus, when it comes to delivering, when it comes to being in the zone, you need to be able to be in control of your mind, which means it's managing your emotions and your feelings, which is being able to consciously tapping into the brain waves. And we can do that with visualization, manifestation, breath work. For me, breath work works very well personally, because when I focus on my breath, everything else clears my mind and I get into a meditative state. Or even technologies like brain tap. So, when it comes to focus, yes, the environment, controlling the environment, controlling your social media, and then starting to work, but also learning how to get into zone on demand and creating those power routines that you as an individual can count on each and every time for you to deliver. And that's what top sports people do, like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. They never had a bad game, really. They lost many games, but usually because of their teammates. And so being in the zone separates a millionaire from a billionaire. It separates an MVP from just an NBA player. It separates from you reaching your goals and dreams to falling short. That's what it does. So I encourage everybody, athlete or not, to really learn the skill of getting in the zone on demand. You're going to have laser focus, no distractions, always the end in mind. And, perform like like you never did before. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, man. Guys, I really want to say this really quick. When I was reading the information on Mike Van Thielan, honestly, the one that really impressed me over all of them is basically he's a world record holder in swimming, 28 U.S. national titles and 2 YMCA national records. And I was like, wow, like that's awesome, Mike. Honestly, what an accomplishment. So honestly, I definitely want you guys to listen to what he's saying here. He knows what the fuck he's talking about, to be blunt. But really, I would love to ask you another question now, because we're speaking to athletes. What percentage of winning as a sports athlete is mental, and what percentage is physical?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get it quite often, and coaches get it often. Journalists ask top coaches too, and usually get an answer between 50 and 90% is mental. It's actually 100%. Because when we look at those athletes, top athletes, whether it's top golfers or NFL players or NBA players or you name it, they all have talents, they all have skills, they all are strong, they all have physical capabilities. And, but people, when they watch a game, right, and they see their favorite athlete, they always make these comments like, oh, he or she had an off day, or his or her head wasn't in the game because they had a bad game, right? And so, but if you look at a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan, they really never had a bad game. They could be sick and running a fever of 103 and still made that winning NBA Finals point against the Jazz and Malone, right? So what is the difference? It's the being in the zone. And what does that do? If you have that routine that you can count on to get in the zone whenever you want, there's no distractions. And you anticipate just a fraction of a second faster than your competitors. You're laser focused. You focus a little bit better, right? But most importantly, I think you have the end in mind. What does that mean? That means is if you're an excellent player because you play at the highest levels of sport, but you see it all the time, even in the NFL or in the NBA or in golf. When a wide receiver, when the ball slips through their hands, usually it takes a few plays for them to recover from that. When you have a top golfer that misses a putt that he or she easily should have made, usually that miss carries over a few plays. But when you're in the zone on demand, you have only the end in mind. So those quote unquote little mistakes won't affect the next play at all. And that's the big difference in sports, but also in any other performance or art or job. And so So the difference between winning and losing is never, physical capabilities, because they all have those already, right? They have the skills or they wouldn't be playing there. The difference is always in between the ears. So when those other players have an off game, it means they were distracted. Why were they distracted? Well, maybe they got into an argument with their partner that something financial is going on, or they were in the news and there was something bad that happened, or something with the kids. It does not matter what it was, but they are distracted and therefore just a little bit late to that ball, etc., etc., etc. So it's a skill that can be learned. So you never have to lose again.
Yeah, you know what? It just dawned on me, man. I had an episode on my podcast library called "You Are Not Losing Weight for This Number One Reason," and in that episode, what I said is that your financial life, your basically other areas of your life can influence how you perform. And I can speak from experience, guys. A very long time ago, I had a very toxic ex-girlfriend that I had to cut out of my life completely. And after that, I started doing conditioning training very heavily. But at that time, I remember that my performance suffered, and that's something that I think a lot of athletes have got to take into consideration.
Yeah, no,
Is
that's 100% right.
you oh, you're so focused on your sport and training right, but little do you know, you guys, everything adds up. If you have some type of bad energy because you had a bad day, you were fighting with your partner, I'm telling you from experience, this is going to basically inhibit your quality, high performing self. And what I mean by that is just, guys, really take into consideration your living situation, how people are treating you. Are you being treated like a doormat or anything like that? Because if you feel like you're being treated that way, then that will show. You'll get frustrated. You'll really start showing all of that lack of performance on your sport. And honestly, again, I cannot stress enough what all my listeners want to take away from this teaching point that I'm really saying here is just take into consideration every area of your life, because even though we're talking about increasing productivity and getting into that zone, understand that this does include your personal life. It just does. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
nobody can get away from that, right? Because we all have those other aspects of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So the key here is that for any human being, it's very important that you, again, we talked about it shortly, upgrade that mind. And part of that is recognizing the emotions that are in your body, that certain situations elicit certain emotions. And then you just need to, number one, acknowledge that, then take ownership, and then do something about it. And so it's all about managing emotions and feelings. And you talked about frustration and anger, and then there's fear and worry and all those types of things. And so there's actually a skill set that you can learn to be 100% in control of that and manage those emotions. That doesn't mean you should push those emotions away. They are real. If you have a girlfriend and you have a relationship with troubles and you have financial problems and you have other things going on in your life, that doesn't mean you have to ignore that those are there, but you need the skills to manage those and be in control of those. And then when you have to go work out or perform, you still can get into that zone because you're managing everything else. So they don't distract you. They are there and they are real, but there's no reason for them to interfere with what you are focused on.
Yep. Absolutely, man. And so that leads me to my next question for you here now. What are some of the ways that we can access the dopamine in our brain to improve our concentration, drive, and motivation?
Yeah, that's a double-loaded question because yes, it's always been the idea of increasing dopamine, right? But I think today most people got to be careful because we talked about dopamine overload. So if you're already in an overload, you don't want to increase it because you're going to get in more of a brain fog and out of balance with the other four intelligence hormones. But let's say you are healthy. Let's say you have social media are under control and social media doesn't control you at all. And let's say you eat healthy. So then to increase your dopamine, Obviously, enough rest, strength training, and healthy food, including curcumin, magnesium, and many other precursors to dopamine. You can Google, there's plenty of them. So it always, many times it comes down to, always fundamentals and basics. So enough rest and sleep, which we talked about. You talked about a power nap. We got to get into the deep delta sleep to repair, recover, and renew. And then strength training, which on this podcast, everybody's probably doing, but for most people that don't do strength training, they're losing out on dopamine. And then a healthy diet. A lot of whatever Mother Nature provided us really stimulates the dopamine in our body.
Yeah, that's that pleasure-seeking hormone, man.
Right.
What is it? Instant gratification. That's the right term. Everyone is so caught up in basically chasing that next best thing, or like that. It always really just blows my mind how many people are actually guilty of this. And sometimes I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I will admit this to you guys. I I will look at my phone too long. I'm like, all right, time out, Adam. Stop looking at your phone.
Yeah, we all, as long as you're conscious about it and you do something about it, it's okay. But
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we all spend too much time. We get distracted so easily, and suddenly we're scrolling and time flies by and we're just wasting our life right there.
And I have to remind myself that what I preach in the Masculine Mindset show is I always say you should not have to have a ton of likes or like a ton of um all of that validation to feel full. Be internally validated, not externally validated.
That's
So
100% right. They tell you that about happiness too, right? You cannot seek happiness in your partner. You got to be happy first before you can find somebody to be happy with. So everything comes from the inside, right? Everything
yes,
does.
draw validation from within and approve of yourself. And remember your fucking worth, you guys, as I always say. That's a totally different citation, but yeah.
Yeah.
So the last question I want to ask you, because I actually have 5 minutes left, and that is, okay, how you supercharge your productivity to crush your to-do list.
Well, if you want to supercharge your productivity, that's that's a big list. But of course, that focus we talked about is a key element, right? Because when you look at statistics of 2022 workplace statistics, people are only on an 8 to 5 workday. People only are actually working 2 to 3 hours, right? That's that's like a 25% effectiveness. What are they doing the other time? They're distracted. They're on social media. They're thinking about their stressors. They're thinking about their girlfriend or their kids, or they're in the break room talking to somebody. So and that's why there's another statistic that basically says 80% of your productivity is done in 20% of your time. So you need to identify when you're producing and replicate that, right? So, with many of my mentees, I really work on, what does your agenda look like and where are we wasting time? And many times I start with asking questions like this, like, how many meetings do you have today? Oh, I have 2 meetings. How long are those meetings? Oh, they're an hour each. Well, who cannot make a decision on a topic in 15 minutes? Why are you having hour meetings? Let's start scheduling your meetings. Do yourself a favor, but also the people you have a meeting with to only schedule them in 15-minute increments, right? And so what projects are you working on? A, B, and C. Well, project C, it doesn't seem like that's fitting your goals and your dreams. Why you're doing it? Oh, a friend of mine asked me to help with it, and it makes a little bit extra money. Get rid of project C. Next time, do not accept project that not fit your goals. That's just life, right? So it's about freeing up valuable time, clearing your schedule, and starting to refocus on what your goals and dreams are, and then really make a plan and a strategy. If your big dream is to be whatever in 5 years, that's great, but that's a little bit overwhelming. So let's break it down in year 4, 3, 2, and 1, and then in months, 12 months, and then in weeks, and then tomorrow. What can we do tomorrow, which is a small incremental step that is towards our goal, so we can feel fulfillment towards our goal each and every day. Because when your dreams are not scary, and you heard this before, they're not big enough. But when they are scary and big, then we assume that we can't do it. And that's why we need to break them down in smaller pieces that we can attain. And then we need a team of experts, is what I call it. We need people around us that we need to get to our highest potential. So when you're talking about sports, you need, on me, like a swimmer, for example, you need a swim coach, you need a trainer in the gym, you need a nutritionist, you need a mental coach, you need a functional medicine doctor for your nutrient profiles, your hormone levels, and then you need support from your family and your friends. And so those are all key peoples. So who is it that you need to achieve your highest potential? And you need to assemble that team. And many times in the past, I've been told that many people, you need to work on your weaknesses. Totally wrong. Forget about your weaknesses. You got to continue to improve on your strengths. You need to know where your weaknesses are, because then you can hire the people or work with the people that are strong where you are weak to form that perfect team to reach your goals and dreams. So it's about purpose, it's about passion, it's about a plan, it's about a team of experts, and it's about eliminating all the things that we do during the day that are not contributing to our goals and our dreams. And people are surprised on how many hours per day we free up with useless stuff that they are doing that doesn't contribute to their goals and dreams.
Love it. So I have about a minute left of my time here, and honestly, Mike, I can tell that you are very knowledgeable in all of this. Guys, this man is an author of, you said 8 books now?
Yeah, correct.
That is, I'm an author of 2 books, but I definitely have to up my game now. So here we go. But here, I want to put all of your information in the show notes, because obviously, you guys, I want you to really take into consideration using Clarigen X, which I'm going to as well. And this man has been featured in NBC News and USA Today. So I appreciate you guys listening to this episode, and I'll see you on the next episode.